Absolutely. I mean, Charlotte Church doesn't need to apologise for the actions of one idiot. I don't hold her responsible. I don't hold 80,000 people who marched absolutely peacefully yesterday through Manchester to express their political views responsible. The person I hold responsible is the person who decided to walk up to me and spit in my face. That was his way of expressing himself, and frankly, it's not on. The other people who caused me to be quite angry were the 100 or so people who surrounded myself and my colleague Kate McCann from The Telegraph and said that because we were from the media, we deserved it. That did make me angry. Again, that is not representative of the 80,000 people who marched. I accept that. And they don't need to apologise. But I think there does need to be perhaps a little bit of quiet reflection from some people at the top who don't like the way the country's run, absolutely fine. Don't even like the way the media acts, again, absolutely fine. But just be careful with the rhetoric, because you fire people up. When you fire people up and they get together in large crowds, I've seen it, I'm a football supporter, I go to a lot of football matches, I see the way the crowd can turn. These things can happen. I just think everyone needs to calm down a little bit.
As you say, it wasn't representative in many people's eyes of the mass crowds that were there. But being a journalist, being at events like this all the time, do you think there is a ramping up of this feeling against the media, against the press, the establishment, as some people are seen?
I think there is, and I think that as journalists, as the press, we need to look at it and see whether these concerns are justified, if these concerns are put to journalists and editors in a constructive way. The other thing I'll say is, I'm not a political editor. I'm a lowly hack. So sort of, spitting in my face is like spitting at someone who works in Starbucks for their company's tax regime. It's not productive. It doesn't achieve anything. Actually, I was there yesterday to report on that march, to go out there and speak to the people, get their views, report it back, put it up on the Huffington Post website, get people reading it. I wasn't able to do that yesterday because of what happened. So really, this person, I'm getting a lot of abuse on Twitter from people, but they need to be angry at this person, actually, because he's the one who stopped me doing my job and reporting on something which I imagine people on the march would like to have had reported.
And reports today as well of journalists with their accreditation badges walking in and being verbally abused as they go in. I mean, it does still seem that even after your case, that journalists, people visiting the conference, are fair game.
That seems to be the mentality, and I just think, we live in a wonderful country where we have a wonderful free press. And the best thing about the press in this country is if you don't like it, you can turn the channel over, you can turn the radio off, you don't need to buy the paper you don't like, you don't need to go to the website that winds you up so much. So I don't understand where a lot of this vitriol comes from, because if you don't want to engage in this, in the outlets you don't like, you don't have to. It's not forced upon you. So I think that directing it at journalists, this vitriol, I just think it's so counterproductive. And all the 80,000 people who marched yesterday peacefully to raise their concerns over what's happening to them, what the government's doing, their voice was lost yesterday because it's been overshadowed by a few instances. But actually, this is the beginning of something, and it does need to be flagged up.
Interesting, isn't it? There's been various talk. Will Jeremy Corbyn come and march with the anti-austerity marches? He has marched in the past. And you do see marches at the other conferences, but on a much smaller scale. It's a very direct left versus right what's happening there in Manchester at the moment, isn't it?
Yes, and I think that although this is certainly not caused by Jeremy Corbyn, I think now you've seen the Labour Party, which has moved to the left. There is that, to use that phrase, clear blue water now between the Tories and Labour. So I think a lot of people on the far left, the hard left, are perhaps flocking to the cause of the Labour Party they weren't before. Alongside, your moderate Labour voters will always back the party through thick and thin. They're coming together and forming a big group on the left. And that's fine. That's perfectly fine for them to protest. It's their democratic right, and I would absolutely always support that. But I think within that, you need to sort of set out the terms of engagement here and say, we're going to protest, we're going to make noise, we're going to keep going on about our case. But what we're not going to do is intimidate, we're not going to harass, we're not going to attack. And that needs to come from the very, very top. So if Charlotte Church does want to write anything, and I'm not saying she has to, if she could write something along those words, then that'd be absolutely fantastic. If she could do it, then, more power to you, Charlotte.
I can see her taking notes as you speak. So when your editor next says to you, Owen, it's conference season, do you go, well, actually, maybe not this time? Does it put you off?
Not at all. And tonight I'm actually going down to the Jeremy Corbyn rally that's being held here in Manchester. I'm going to go down, I'm going to report on that, I'm going to take notes, I'm going to do what I do every day in my job. I'm not going to be intimidated by these people because I know that yesterday, in the midst of all the carnage and the police having to sort of hide me and my colleague to get us into a hotel lobby, there was people there who were saying, leave them alone, they're from the press. Even if they weren't from the press, leave them alone. It's just not the way we should be conducting politics in this country. So it's certainly not going to stop me doing my job.